Welcome, the new video. In this recap, on Halloween night, Anton wakes up to find his parents dead and a terrifying message on the ceiling. I'm under the bed. But the real horror starts when he discovers a demonic force is controlling his own hand. As bodies pile up, zombies rise, and his crush becomes the next target. Anton must stop the evil before midnight, or lose his soul forever. In the starting, during Halloween in the town of Bolin, Mr. and Mrs. Tobias are getting ready for bed when they see a message painted on the ceiling. Mrs. Tobias screams in terror upon reading the phrase, "I'm under the bed," written in fluorescent paint. When he turns on the lights, Mr. Tobias believes it's just a Halloween prank by his son Anton. He then tells his wife to go back to sleep, but the two hear a strange noise outside the bedroom. Startled, Mrs. Tobias tells her husband to see what's going on, and even though he doesn't want to go, he leaves the room, taking his flashlight with him. Shortly after, everything falls silent until Mrs. Tobias is startled again, but this time by Bones, the family's pet cat. She tries to remain calm and cuddles the kitten until she hears her husband's shouts coming from the living room. Mrs. Tobias then decides to go there to see what happened when she finds the pumpkin head costumes, with the candles still lit. The woman is annoyed that Anton didn't blow out the candles and is returning to the room when she sees her husband's lantern on the floor, along with a trail of blood. Mrs. Tobias becomes desperate and runs to call Anton from the attic, but the boy doesn't answer. She then runs to the room and tries to call the police, but a mysterious hand pulls her under the bed. The next morning, Anton wakes up thanks to Bones, and as usual, the boy leaves in his pajamas with his headphones on, not caring about anything. He doesn't even notice his father's body lying on the floor and goes straight to the kitchen, where he sees that his dog Duke's milk and food are gone. Anton shouts for his mother, asking her to buy more, but since she doesn't answer, the boy goes to the sofa to spend the day watching television. On one of the channels, the news is showing a story about a new criminal in the city who has already claimed several victims during Halloween. Anton doesn't care about it, changes the channel, and removes the asthma inhaler attached to his necklace, which he uses for another purpose. However, the container is empty, and he decides to go to his friends Mick and Noob's house. When he arrives, the two are surprised to see their friend, as it's been days since Anton last went to school, and if things continue like this, he'll end up being expelled. Furthermore, he hasn't even chosen a partner for the school dance, which is in a few days. Upon learning this, Anton remembers Molly, his neighbor with whom he has a crush and who, coincidentally, is passing by on her motorcycle. On the way, she ends up dropping her songbook, and seeing an opportunity, Anton decides to pick it up. After putting on a pair of pants borrowed from Noob, the boy takes the notebook and goes to Molly's house to return it. Upon arriving, the girl is surprised by the gesture, but before she can thank him, the demented man becomes agitated and rushes out without saying a word. Far away, in the state of Utah, a nun named Debbie goes to the police station to speak with one of the prisoners. However, upon reaching the cells, she realizes that the prisoner is in a state of shock, with his hand immobile. Debbie becomes frustrated when she realizes that the man is not who she was looking for, and as soon as she leaves the police station, she takes off her nun costume and returns to her van. Apparently, she's hunting for something or someone in the region, and she marks the state of Utah on her map. However, looking more closely, Debbie realizes that the marked locations form a pattern, and by connecting the dots, she forms the image of a pentagram, with the city of Bolin at the center. While she's on her way there, Anton goes shopping at the market when he's stopped by two corrupt police officers, McMacy and Ruck. Looking for easy money, the two approach the boy and accuse him of carrying prohibited substances, even without any proof. As punishment, they give him a $200 fine, but Anton is not intimidated. After that, the boy goes to the kitchen to make a sandwich, and without realizing it, picks up a blood-stained knife to spread mayonnaise. When the young man finally sees the bloodstains, he is frightened, and soon after, he finds Bones playing on the floor with a human eye. The boy suspects that the city's criminal is inside the house, and alongside Duke, he tries to leave unnoticed. Anton slowly approaches the door, but someone appears at the window and the boy runs back to the room. Once there, he hides with Duke under the covers and tries to call the police, but when he looks up, he sees the message, "I'm under the bed," written on the ceiling. Startled, Anton runs to the exit, but ends up slipping on an umbrella and falling along with the pumpkin figures. He soon discovers that the figures were the bodies of his parents, disposed of a few hours earlier. The boy leaves home feeling unwell when Mick and Noob appear and ask what happened. Anton asks for their help and takes them inside the house, where he shows them his parents lifeless on the floor, possibly attacked by the city's notorious criminal. Mick gets scared and goes to inspect the bodies, when he finds a piece of shirt stuck to Mrs. Tobias's hand. Looking at Anton, he notices that his shirt is missing a piece, and the boy begins to suspect that he was the one who eliminated his own parents. As the story gets increasingly strange, Mick decides to call the police. However, Anton snatches the phone from him. The boy tries to explain himself, but Mick says that Anton is very stressed and offers him a drink from the refrigerator. However, Anton accidentally breaks the bottle, and unable to control his movements, he hits Mick on the head with it. Noob hears the screams and goes to see what happened, only to find his friend lifeless next to Anton. The young man tries to say he didn't mean to do it, and soon after, his right hand begins to move on its own. Anton tries to grab it, but the hand forces him to move toward Noob, who is trying to hide inside the basement. Anton's right hand continues to control him, and he manages to open the door, but tells his friend to run away while trying to hold on to something. Noob then makes his way back up the stairs, but Anton's hand grabs a sharp saw and throws it at the boy, removing his head. With this latest victim, Anton believes he's the city's most notorious criminal, and for some reason, he's being controlled by the hand. As soon as he enters the room, the hand compels him to turn on the TV to watch a program, but Anton tries to stop it, and the two struggle over the remote control. In the midst of the confrontation, Bones approaches Anton, who tells him to back off, but his hand grabs the cat and throws it to the house across the street. The boy runs to help his cat, but his hand regains control and starts ringing the doorbell. Anton quickly realizes that this is Molly's house, and when she appears, the boy tries to control his hand at all costs. Despite the unexpected visit, the young woman is happy to see him again and invites Anton inside. The two go to the bedroom, and while the girl goes to put music on the stereo, the demented hand sees a knife on the dresser and tries to attack Molly. Anton manages to control himself, but he ends up getting too close to the girl, who, surprised by his behavior, confesses that she has always had feelings for him. The couple enjoys their time alone, but Anton's hand remains uncontrollable and tries to squeeze Molly's neck. To avoid ruining the mood, the young man ties his hand to the headboard, and despite the bizarre situation, Molly doesn't mind and the two spend the night together. Minutes later, Molly's parents return home, and Anton has to leave, but he makes plans with the girl to go to the dance together. After sneaking out, Anton returns home, and out of respect for his parents and friends, he buries them in the middle of the yard. The boy apologizes for what he did and promises everyone, especially his parents, that he will try to be a better person. However, as he is leaving, he hears Mick's voice calling him from underground. Confused, Anton approaches the grave to see if it's true, when two hands emerge from the earth and begin to pull him. The young man manages to break free, but sees Mick get up, along with Noob, his body beside his head, which has fallen to the ground. Anton doesn't believe it's real, but Noob calms him down by hitting him on the head with the shovel. The next morning, the boy wakes up in his attic bed and believes it was all just a strange dream. He then goes to the kitchen and sees Mick and Noob on the couch, only to discover that they are indeed zombies. Anton asks how they were brought back, and Mick replies that after being eliminated, they heard a call from beyond, but simply refused it and returned as the undead. They are still conscious and ask Anton what he's going to do now that his hand is possessed. The young man, however, has no idea, but needs to talk to an expert on the subject, so Mick suggests he talk to Randy, his rocker neighbor and fan of the supernatural. Anton then goes to look for Randy, who is talking to a girl at a memorial service for the victims of the criminal. However, Anton ends up disrupting the atmosphere, and the man gets so angry that he leaves without paying him any attention. Luckily, he stops at a nearby diner, and Anton dresses up as one of the employees so he can deliver the order. Using a microphone, he asks what he can do to control his hand, which seems to be possessed by an evil spirit. Thinking it's all a joke, Randy simply tells the boy to keep his hands busy so they won't bother him anymore. The boy takes the advice, and when he gets home, he tries to occupy them by knitting clothes. The plan works, however, outside the house. Officers McMacy and Rook are driving by, responding to a noise complaint in the neighborhood. They realize the noise is coming from Anton's house, and through the window, they see the boy next to the bodies of Mick and Noob. Believing Anton to be the notorious criminal, they raid the house and announce his arrest. The boy continues knitting to prevent his hand from doing anything and begs the police to handcuff him before it's too late. Officer McMacy tries to handcuff him, but Anton's hand stops knitting and hits the officer's ear with the needle. Then, she grabs the taser from his belt and fires it at Rook's face. The plan to keep his hands busy didn't work, so Anton decides to end it once and for all. He puts his hand in the cake cutter and tries to pull it out, but the blade isn't sharp enough. Anton then looks for something sharper, and upon finding the cleaver, he tries again, but his hand manages to deflect all the blows. Finally, he asks Noob's head to bite his hand, and with it trapped, Anton strikes with all his might, removing the possessed hand. Finally, Anton is free, but he needs to treat his wound quickly before the situation worsens. His friends then go to Mick's house to get the first aid kit, but as soon as they leave, Anton realizes that the demented hand has disappeared. To make matters worse, it's the night of the school's costume ball, and Molly is knocking on the door, calling for Anton. He tries to warn her not to come in, but a hand appears hanging from the ceiling and leaps towards his face, attempting to eliminate him. With great effort, Anton manages to free himself, and he throws his hand into the lit microwave, causing it to implode. At the same instant, Molly decides to enter the house, but Anton stops her and invites her to the dance, saying that the injury to his hand is part of his costume. Minutes later, Mick and Noob return home, bringing the first aid kit and burritos to microwave. However, when the two demented individuals go to put the food in, the hand manages to escape and climbs through the window, searching for Anton. Meanwhile, the boy arrives at the dance, but he knows his hand might come back and asks Molly to wait for him at the party. Even without understanding what's happening, she agrees, and Anton runs back home, where Mick helps Noob reattach his head to his body. Unfortunately, the two ended up letting go of the hand, and now it's loose in the city. Far away, at a bowling alley, Randy is practicing his throws when he sees Debbie, disguised as an employee, enter the place. He quickly becomes interested in the young woman, and besides offering her a drink, Randy asks what she's doing in town. Without hesitation, Debbie reveals herself to be a druid, a supernatural warrior who has come in search of someone possessed by the notorious criminal. Randy wasn't expecting that answer, but he remembers that Anton had a similar problem, and believes that he's the one Debbie is looking for. Upon learning this, the young woman asks for his help to find him, and the two set off in his trailer to find the boy. Meanwhile, Anton returns home and enlists Mick and Noob's help to find a sinister hand. He believes that, in revenge, the next victim will be Molly, who is at the costume party with the other students. However, the two refuse, saying that since Anton got rid of the hand, that problem is no longer his, and it's better for the three of them to enjoy the evening. But Anton is tired of wasting time sitting on the couch and wants to do something worthwhile with his life. His friends are surprised by this change, and then agree to help him save Molly. To get there in time, they need a car, and they find Randy's pickup truck parked in front of his house. At that very moment, Debbie appears on the scene, and upon seeing Anton, she runs to warn him about the hand. Unfortunately for her, the three boys get into Randy's truck, and without noticing her presence, they reverse and push Debbie away. Randy rushes to help Debbie, and the two follow the boys, who are speeding off to the costume party. Minutes later, in the school parking lot, a rocker couple is enjoying some time alone, unaware that a hand has just brushed against the windshield. Seconds later, she manages to get into the car and jumps towards the young woman's neck, squeezing tightly until she eliminates her. Her boyfriend is startled and tries to run away, but the hand grabs him first and eliminates him in a few seconds. At that same moment, the trio arrives at the school, only to find the couple lifeless inside the car. Believing it to be the work of the demented hand, Anton decides to search inside the school, while Mick and Noob go to the party at the stadium to protect Molly. Because it's a costume party, none of the students suspect that they are the undead, and the two manage to enter unnoticed. However, their appearance is so realistic that one of the students, Tanya, asks Noob to dance to the live performance of the band The Offspring. Meanwhile, Anton searches for his hand in the school hallways, unaware that it has just entered the principal's office. The principal is on the phone with his girlfriend, but is interrupted by the hand, which launches a direct attack on the victim's stomach. Not satisfied, the hand finds an electric pencil sharpener on the table and uses it to sharpen its nails even further. Outside, Anton passes by the principal's office and sees the blood-stained door, but there is no sign of the hand anywhere. The boy then continues running down the hallways when he bumps into Debbie, who has just arrived at school. She says she knows what's going on with the boy and can solve his problem, but then she pulls out a magic dagger and tries to hit him. Anton manages to dodge, but Debbie knocks him to the ground with a blow and is about to deliver the final blow. Fortunately, the boy manages to bite her hand, causing Debbie to drop the dagger, but Randy appears soon after and attacks Anton for stealing his car. Finally, Debbie retrieves the dagger, but Anton removes the bandage from his arm and reveals that he has removed the possessed hand. He then asks for their help to save his girlfriend, and Debbie agrees, because if the hand finds her by midnight, the girl's spirit will be taken to the underworld. The three then run towards the schoolyard, where Anton climbs onto the stage and pushes Dexter, The Offspring's lead singer, aside to warn the students. He says that the city's notorious criminal is at the school, and the students need to escape before they become the next victims. However, nobody believes the boy, and Dexter orders him off the stage because he still has a show to finish. Unfortunately for the man, the hand falls on his head and with its sharp claws, attacks his head. Everyone at the party starts fleeing in desperation, but the hand uses its nails to knock down the spotlights, blocking the exit. In the midst of the confusion, Molly tries to help Anton, but Tanya calls the girl to escape through the ventilation duct. However, as soon as they enter the passage, the hand follows them, intent on capturing Molly. After crawling through the duct, the girls find the passage blocked by a ventilation turbine. Molly then borrows Tanya's shoe and places it between the propellers, causing the turbine to stop. Next, she takes the whip from Tanya's uniform, ties it to the support, and uses it to climb down through the passage just below the fan. As soon as Molly crosses the passage, she calls for Tanya, but the girl gets scared and refuses to come down. Molly insists and the whip starts to be pulled back up, but not by Tanya. Instead, the hand uses the whip to attack the girl, leaving her hanging below the turbine. Desperate, Molly tries to save her, but the hand removes the shoe that was holding the propellers, causing Tanya to be pulled away and her body parts to scatter everywhere. Molly is then forced to flee down the hallway, but upon entering the art room, she is hit on the head by a vase and falls unconscious. Minutes later, Anton finds the art room and suddenly sees one of the puppets in the puppet theater move. The boy leaps toward the puppet, believing the hand is inside it, but it's hidden in another puppet, which lunges at him. The two engage in a fierce struggle, but Anton gains the upper hand and is about to crush the hand. Unfortunately, Mick and Noob also tried to escape through the ventilation duct, but ended up falling from the ceiling, right on top of Anton. Once again, the possessed hand managed to escape, and seconds later, the three heard Molly's screams coming from the school garage. Upon arriving, they see the girl tied to a car with a pentagram drawn on the roof. Then, the hand, still dressed as a puppet, pulls the elevator lever, and the car begins to ascend, about to crush Molly against the roof. The three then try to remove their hand from the lever, but it's stronger and won't let go. Mick then looks for something to get it off, when he finds one of the students' strange inventions. They then place several doses of the forbidden substance they were carrying inside the thing and hand it to Anton, who begins to suck up all the smoke. Then he blows it all into the puppet, and the amount of smoke is so high that his hand can't withstand it and falls to the ground, stunned. Thanks to this, the elevator stops at the last second, and Molly is safe, but the lever jammed, and they can't get the car down. Anton then looks for something to cut the ropes, but at that same instant, the possessed hand rises again and leaps towards him. Fortunately, Randy and Debbie show up in the garage, and the druid throws her dagger at the hand, which is pushed into Mick's body. With this precise blow, the hand disappears forever, and Debbie invites Randy to celebrate another job completed together. After that, Anton uses the dagger to free Molly, and finally the two can enjoy the rest of the night. Mick and Noob also decide to return to the party, but unintentionally, they move the lever, and the elevator descends with a jolt, crushing Anton. Seconds later, a portal to heaven opens at the location, giving Mick and Noob the chance to go to the afterlife, along with Anton. However, instead of following them, Anton has the chance to remain on Earth, and days later, he wakes up in a hospital bed, still alive and with his body completely bandaged. He is being looked after by Molly, but visiting hours are soon ending, and she has to leave. At that moment, Noob and Mick appear, this time as guardian angels, and they promise to help their friend make the right decisions this time. The boy is happy about this, but as soon as he is left alone in his room, he sees the same message painted on the ceiling, saying that there is something under the bed. Anton screams desperately for his friends, unaware that Mick and Noob wrote the message as a joke. Subscribe for more recap videos.